Welcome back to a best of 3 series of top level StarCraft 2. What I've got for you today is a Protoss versus Zerg. We're in game number 1 in the bottom right hand corner with the blue Zerg drones. We have none other than Solar, who's been an absolute monster on the new patch so far. I've been absolutely loving the Solar games I've seen lately. His opponent, though, in this particular series with the red Protoss pieces, he goes by the name of Nightmare. Now, Nightmare, in general, a very formidable Protoss player, someone who's gotten significantly better over the last few years, but also someone I haven't seen play much yet on the new multiplayer balance patch. So, in my mind, going into this series, Solar is certainly the favorite because he seems to be on fire right now. But who knows, maybe Nightmare can give him a run for his money. It's always difficult, right, to break into the upper echelons of StarCraft 2. Sometimes we see players that get extremely good, but are just barely unable to make it to the tippity top. And even when you're like a top 20 player or so, right? If you're the rank 20 in the world, you're gonna basically have no shot at competing against the, well, the top 3, the top 4, the top 5 maybe. The differences between the different leagues in StarCraft 2 are massive. But that continues as well at the absolute highest level. So let's see. It's going to be a very normal start, it looks like. Gateway on the low ground, into a cybernetics core at 20 supply, and then we're cutting a worker to go into the 20 supply cyber core as well. This is, of course, the gold standard for Protoss, although a lot of Protoss players do mess around with it a little bit. The usual thing, though, that you do is a 20 supply Nexus, and then a 20 supply cyber core as well. If you were to scout with the worker here on the other side of the map, that indeed it is not a hatchery first, then you would usually get the cyber core at 20 supply first, and then the Nexus. You swap the two structures around just to be at least reasonably safe. Even against like a 12 pool, you still can have a very fast second base. I'm assuming Nightmare is just going to be playing the gold standard. Now, of course, he's a Korean player, so you never really know. They tend to be very aggressive across the board. But the gold standard would be to go for a Stargate right now. Okay. Okay, fair enough. It always depends, right? So if you look at, for example, Hero, if you've been inspired as a Protoss player by what Hero has been doing lately, maybe you would go for, well, literally anything. Hero seems to be able to make anything work at this point in the meta. Stargates, Twilights, even a Robo first, which is really weird. He's been playing everything from Dark Templar rushes to Phoenix builds. Strategies that are technically very suboptimal, but still very strong. The norm, though, for Protoss in the current meta would be to go for at least 2 Oracles. We've seen players like, for example, Mana go 1 Oracle into Archon drops, which I think is very cool as well. There we go. No surprise there. You could also go into a Void Ray start and then follow it up with Oracles. Honestly, the Stargate opener just has a lot of variety. This, though, is the gold standard for a couple different reasons. First off, it goes really nicely hand in hand together with those Adepts, because, well, the Adepts are gonna require the Queens to take attention, right? And if the Queens are busy chasing down the Adepts, then the Oracle can swoop in and potentially get eco damage done. But long after these 2 Adepts are dead, and they are going to die, I'm sorry, if you're a fan of these 2 Adepts, they're likely gonna fall. Maybe they get to defend the 3rd base for a while, but they're likely not going to live as long as the Oracles. The Oracle, though, can still be used in the mid-game for some revelations, stasis wards, and all the rest of it. And honestly, the way in which Oracles get microed really dictates how well a game is going for Protoss. Nice little bit of aggression. Those Adepts are going to die sooner, by the way, rather than later. There you go. I hope you didn't get too attached. If you do sack the 2 Adepts, though, yeah, it does mean that your 3rd Nexus is a little bit more vulnerable. Maybe the Oracles will have to chill for a moment. Okay, fair enough. It's the downside. Either you keep the Nexus alive with the Oracle, or you keep the Nexus alive with the 2 Adepts. Now this over here, this little setup is a little curious. Most of the time players achieve this exact same thing by delaying one of these 2 pylons and instead using, for example, the Vespian Gas Geyser here, or the Nexus, to close the other side. It's a little bit weird, because now Nightmare actually has more supply than he needed. Solar, up until this point, has taken a little bit of damage, but I don't think this is an early game that he's really too concerned about. Yep, Lair starts up at a very conventional time. +1 melee has already been fired up as well. Solar has been skipping out the Roach Warren a lot in this matchup. I've been seeing him play a lot of Hydraling Bane, for example. And I think when you see your opponent throwing away the first 2 Adepts, like, okay, the reason you go for a Roach Warren usually in this matchup is if you are concerned of some sort of Twilight Council push. And the most common Twilight Council push is a Glyph Adept push. Now, it could be Charge, it could be Archons, it could be Dark Templar, it could be Blink, right? So there is some variety there. But more often than not, if you are worried about a Twilight Council attack, especially like an all-in-y version of it early on, it would indeed be a Glyph Adept push. But if your opponent shows you warping in a couple of Stalkers at the 3rd base, and then on top of that, they've already lost 2 Adepts earlier on, do you really need a Roach Warren to try and, stop that sort of push? Not really. So Solar cutting that corner, saving himself 150 minerals plus the drone worth. So effectively, like, 4 workers worth right there for a Roach Warren. It's not bad. Instead goes for the Baneling Nest and now also a very rapid Infestation Pit. Now Nightmare, knowing what the opponent knows, he knows that likely roaches are not going to be a name of the game. So instead he decides to go double Robo Colossus, which yet again doesn't really work out too nicely against the roach-based opener. But because he knows that his opponent knows, that is likely going to be skipped. Colossi are once more an option. Welcome to high-level StarCraft. It is rock, paper, scissors, but then with an additional 20 hand gestures or so. What is the one they play in The Big Bang Theory? Rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock or something? I'm not exactly sure. StarCraft 2 very similar in the same way, except there's a lot more layers to it. All right, we're gonna go into the extended thermal lens here. And this is an excellent strategy against exactly what Solar is doing so far. Although, Solar is not going Hydras. So, we're going Hive. I'm assuming +2... Are we rushing Ultras? I would say Ultras are probably good against Colossi, but not so good against Immortals. This is a very weird game now. Normally, you would go either Roaches with Lingbane, or Ravagers with Lingbane, or you go Hydras with Lingbane. Solar is now going Lingbane with Lingbane. Those Colossi, by the way, popped at the correct time. Yeah, those Stalkers would have been dead. This is now Lingbane with more Lingbane. What is the Hive going to be for? Honestly, the only thing that makes sense here is Ultralisks, but I kind of hate it. We could also go maybe Viper Lingbane? I kind of hate that as well. Observer goes down, but I think Nightmare has a perfect opportunity to get some damage down, although he still does not have the extended thermal lens. We got a Chrono that bad boy, dude. Chrono boost is so important. It's Ultras! Ultra Rush versus Protoss? Really? Well, you know what? Nightmare's army is looking minuscule right here. There is no... There's no sentries. The Zealots are working away at the hatchery down south. Here comes the Swarm, though. The Stasis Ward is good. Man, that's why it's so critical to keep this alive. Nice little bit of juggling on at least one of the Colossi. Solar is getting a little bit carried away, I think, with the creativity. Sure, the idea of going Ultras is pretty neat. But honestly, as Nightmare sees it, you just start up some Immortals right now, and those Ultras are going to do nothing. Here's the units waking up again out of stasis. This time around, the Pulsar Beam get activated on the Oracles. And Nightmare wins a pretty easy, honestly. A pretty easy game number 1. And that takes us to the map Pylon. Very normal opener here by both players. Nightmare sending the probe that built the pylon straight across the map, and he blocked the opponent's natural. Stargate opener yet again. Sometimes you get those games, right? And I feel like that previous game was a good example for Nightmare. Sometimes you get one of those games where you attack, you mean to just do a little bit of pressure, but then you accidentally win the game. Nightmare was just testing the waters. He was like, oh, okay, I guess I have Stalkers down. I've got a couple of these, I've got a couple of these Colossi out. Extended Thermal Lens is finishing up, but that attack that he went for could have been a lot scarier. If he would have added on a few sentries, like there wasn't a single spellcaster in that army at all. If he would have gone for a few sentries, a couple of force fields there, They could have changed that outcome even more dramatically. But Nightmare accidentally won the game, which is nice. A happy accident. Zergling speed is going to finish up. This time around, it looks like the Adepts are going to stay alive, although... Ooh, you came to the wrong neighborhood! That's where Brenda lives! And Zergling speed is now done as well. No third Nexus yet, though. Here for Nightmare. Okay. He's gonna try and add on, yep, that second gateway instead. 5 kills on this single Adept, though. Can't be too upset about the whole situation. It's been a very, very quick Oracle, by the way. Second Oracle already popping out. There's the Twilight Council? Okay. So we're taking a page. We're taking a page out of Hero's book with this strategy. So what Hero's been doing consistently lately is delaying the timing of the third Nexus. So for years, Protoss have been trying to shave a second here, a second there off of their third base timing. Hero's like, oh, 5.5 minutes. That's perfect. That's exactly what I needed. All the other Protoss players there are stepping on Legos. Every move they make needs to be calculated and perfect. Generally speaking, you see a Nexus right now at the third base at like 345 or so. Maybe 350, depending on execution. But this is a delayed version of it. This is a faster Twilight Council, faster additional gateways here. Maybe this was like a 12 supply pylon or something on the low ground. I'm not exactly sure what Nightmare did here to shave a few seconds off of the strat, but it's now a reasonably fast third Nexus with also a reasonably fast bit of tech, but then also a reasonably good economy. Now, is being reasonable in every aspect of the game good? Maybe. Probably not. He's a hybrid Protoss here. He's a jack of all trades type of Protoss. Maybe it's good for some things, but usually in StarCraft 2, it's better, at least in my experience, to like lean to one of the extremes. Either you go focus on main army, or you focus on a lot of tech and you get like a really strong army a little bit later on, or you focus on full economy. And now with this like middle of the road approach, yeah, maybe you can catch the opponent off guard because the timings are kind of weird, but I feel like I describe hero strategies in similar ways though, and he consistently makes it work. Here we go. Now this time around, the Roach Warren was not skipped. If there was no Roach Warren here, this would have been death. Man, I don't know if I agree with this completion. Should we not have canceled that shade? Yeah, I think we should have. Ugh. 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 I mean, it was still 9 drones, I guess. My main concern, though, is when this Zerg army grows across the map, and apparently we have the same thing right now going on in Nightmare's head. He's getting nightmares. Sorry. Thank you for hitting the like button, though. Yeah, that was a great joke. The funniest ever. Anyways, he's going to go for a Void Ray here. So, at the very least, he will, you know, be able to keep the third Nexus alive. Did one of the Oracles die? Ah, yeah, one of the Oracles died as well. I was wondering where the other one went. Okay. So this would be a good opportunity for Solar to go for like a Queen drop or some sort of hyper-aggressive follow-up. I feel like Solar in general is a big fan of those strategies, but since he is 1-0 behind in the series, I don't know if he wants to risk it. I think in Solar's mind, he's probably the better macro player than Nightmare, so maybe risking it is not really a necessity. So instead, I think we're going to be playing the macro game instead. I would not be surprised to see a Infestation Pit here in a moment. And maybe a transition to like Hydra Lurker or something along those lines. Well, I say that. For now, apparently we're going +1 melee and then Baneling speed. That is something that Solar has been showing a lot as well against the absolute top dogs with Protoss, where he just sends in wave after wave after wave of Roachling Bane. I casted a series actually a few days ago. I believe this was between Solar and Hero, where Solar basically got to the drone count that he aimed for. So sometimes it was like 80, sometimes it was like 60, sometimes it was like 54. In one of the games it was 40. And then as soon as he gets there, he's never making a drone ever again. And it looks like we're playing a similar idea once more here. So he's reached his designated worker count, and now we're doing full aggression. Full Roach Ling, and then a whole lot of Banelings. And you know what? Brenda and Karen are part of the party as well. He actually rebuilt one of the oracles, which I do quite like. Nice targeting onto the Ravagers. One of them goes down. But yeah, this is going to be quite a scary attack here. And Nightmare needs to defend. Now, he did go for Size Storm. He cancelled it. No, he did not. It's just not done yet. Ah, contamination. That's the problem. Contamination has been used to try and slow down that research time. Still, though, the Stalker numbers are big. Stalkers against Banelings, by the way, are never really a bad idea. Probes have to run. There's one High Templar waiting in the back. Okay, it ends up going down, but I think the defense is pretty good so far. Yeah, I don't think a Nightmare can really be too upset about the whole situation. We have drones, by the way, on the production tab. Only 2. Only 2. +1 melee is now finished. We're going straight into +2 melee. And Solar is rinsing and repeating, but I don't think the first wave was that good. Now Storm is done. Nice. Dude, Nightmare is kind of owning Solar. Lovely work here. Everything's going according to plan. He even snuck out a 4th Nexus during all of this. This is still not an easy game to close out, though. Obviously, especially because the Zerg is making non-stop units, you're still forced into macro. But I mean, as long as he's got a bunch of High Templar, I don't know why we only have 2. We should probably have a few more. Yeah, keep making them. They're very gas heavy. He adds on another base. I think this is a fake 5th. Or, sorry, a fake... Well, yeah, I guess a fake 4th, a fake 5th. Solar scouts it immediately. If Solar moves in right now and gets the console on this base, he may assume that he's got his opponent exactly where he needs him, but in reality, there's the real 4th base in the bottom left. So this, I think this is bait. I think this is Nightmare faking it. Okay, Baneling's going through the cracks over here, but the mineral line stays alive. Man, if only Solar would have seen the base in the far bottom left. Now, in a weird way, though, Nightmare hasn't added on workers here for a while. Storm? 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 Okay, that Storm's been pretty darn good. Those Zerglings trying to find a way out. There's a bunch of drones in the mix, by the way, in this particular set of the map, or this section of the map. Okay, Archons do get morphed in. I would have liked to see a few more of the High Templar as well in the natural expansion for defense, but this is yet again a hold. But Nightmare loses a bunch of workers here. And I feel like the one difference is that normally Protoss is sitting now at a healthy number of workers, but Nightmare hasn't been building those probes for a while. Now he finally resumes it. But it's so common that we see these sort of attacks from the Zerg not going according to plan, and they're going up against like a 75 worker economy on the side of the Protoss. Nightmare has been microing the units well, but he's not been managing the economy. He's sneaking out a few probes towards the bottom left, but if Solar catches wind of it in any way at all, that mineral line is going to disappear very quickly. Okay. Yeah, so no Hive. Really very few drones. We're adding on some structure, some defensive measures. But across the board, it really is just rinse and repeat. And I think Nightmare is reading this like a complete all-in from the Zerg, right? So he's looking at this like, okay, fully all-in. All I need to do is hold. But right now, Solar's economy is actually not terrible. It's all relative, right? It all comes down to how good your eco is compared to your opponents. Solar's been mining for, yeah, look at that. A little bit more money. Oh, Zerglings are going to find the base. Zerglings are going to come across this base. They were actually planning on just, yeah, hiding themselves and turning into Banelings. I think that now drastically changes the game plan here for Solar. Well, at the very least, direction of where the game plan is headed. Yeah, Nightmare has been hesitant adding on workers. Apparently he's thinking 69. That's nice enough. But I think he could have been sitting at a little bit more than that. Banelings not even being used. He's keeping the Banelings around because those probes are dead anyways. Cool guys don't look at explosions, but apparently the really cool guys don't even use the explosions here, but just sent the Zerglings in. And what was looking like a really stellar game for Nightmare is kind of slipping out of his fingers. Hydrodan now. Hive now as well. Solar is starting to make the transition to what I believe will be Lurkers. Now we're 14 minutes into this game, and he knows for a fact that the Protoss is stuck on 3 bases. Now the main is gonna run dry. Natural expansion is gonna run dry. Even the 3rd base, half those mineral fields, look at that. That's 60 minerals left. They're looking mighty skinny. There's only 40 on that one. Nightmare needs to go all in or get a 4th base. But he can't keep playing this like YOLO type of push here for a while. He's getting cleaned up in every other fight though. I never like these random zealot pushes when the main army isn't out on the map. Like, it's much easier for the Zerg now to defend against this. I mean, it gets a little bit of damage done. But those minerals probably needed to be... Like, now would be a good time, right? But those minerals probably needed to be used to build a base instead. Banelings going in around the back. They're hunting for the High Templar! Oh my god, he gets pretty much all of them. Well, that could not have gone much better. Well, I guess maybe one more Baneling would have been nice. So all of the High Templar would have disappeared. There's one more over here too, but... That was the perfect opportunity there for the Zerg. This little Zealot run by up north, though, has been a bit more effective, but the clock is ticking because Lurkers are going to be joining the battlefield here in just about a half-minute time. They won't be upgraded yet, and there's one Observer in the mix, but none of these Protoss units here are particularly good against Lurkers. Solar immediately fires up 6 of them. He was saving up a bit of gas. Now he needs to buy time. Gives up on the base. Fair enough. Zealot run by yet again over here. Zergling run by in the meantime too. We have a probe on hold position. That is the anti-F2 probe. If you like all army hotkeying, putting a probe on hold position there is actually quite effective, as you can see. But now the Lurkers are out. Ranged is coming for them. If the Lurker numbers get too big, there's really nothing that Protoss can do. Oh, really? The High Templar are going into the main base. The Stalkers are going into the main base too. Stasis Ward! Oy, 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 the Stasis Ward gets denied. Lovely attempt here by Nightmare. But I don't think it's good enough. Yeah. Zerglings in the meantime on the other side of the map. Destroying a mineral line. Nightmare realized that he was in a desperate position and he needed to do something, but... Now he's sitting at 23 workers, 2 bases. He's got Stalkers and, well, a few High Templar and a bunch of Archons and Zealots and all that, but he's soon gonna go up against fully upgraded Zerg late game. And especially the Lurkers are problematic. All Solar needs to do now is hold the main attack. But I think he's gonna keep sending in run-bys. Yeah, I don't mind the idea at all. It's really gonna create so much pressure. Unless he can catch the Lurkers? I mean, this might be the opportunity, but down a ramp into a choke against ranged Lurkers? I don't know. Roaches in the meantime, though, putting on pressure. And this is annoying here for Nightmare, who was trying to take his time with this push. But he knows that he can't really stop the Roaches very easily, so he needs to do something against... Well, either this army... Okay, well... We could either push across the map, or we could defend at home, or we could rip off the Band-Aid and just leave. And that means that this series comes down to Tato Citadel. I would have really liked to see Nightmare throw his units at the wall and watch the entire Protoss army disappear to the Lurkers. Look, the odds of that working out are basically 0. But they're not quite 0. So, you know, maybe you can catch the opponent off guard. Maybe, I don't know, maybe Solar accidentally put his lurkers on hold fire or something. Like, there's always a chance. Albeit a very small one. But I think for the fans, it would have been better to just blink in and watch the Protoss army disappear. That would have taken an extra 5 seconds or so. One Hail Mary. Is that a baseball term? Sometimes I use sporting terms of sports that I've never watched. I recently posted an Instagram story with me wearing a Yankees hat. And a lot of people now believe that I am a Yankees fan. But no. I have never even watched. I've never watched a game of baseball. Is Hail Mary baseball or is it football? Like American football? I have no idea. Yankees hats are actually very common in the Netherlands. I don't really know why. I did see an interview. This is funny for the Americans. Everybody else is like, yo, what's going on? I did see an interview where, like, somebody asked random people with Yankees hats on the streets, right? New York Yankees hats. What sport the New York Yankees was. And about half of them said basketball. That's how big the sports, you know, that's how big the Yankees fans here are committed to defend them. Anyways, let's see. It's going to be a spore crawler over here in the natural as well as in the main base. Nothing over at the third yet. I actually did see that apparently for the New York Yankees, I don't know if this is true, but I read it on the internet, so it must be. Because lying on the internet is illegal. One of the most common old school names for Dutch people is Jan. And then Kees would be another one. And apparently a lot of Dutch people moved over. Obviously New York was founded by Dutch people, right? So it was called New Amsterdam at the time. And apparently they were oftentimes referred to as the Jan Kees. Which may have eventually turned into the Yankees. I'm not entirely sure if that's factual, but that's what pops into my head. I read it on the internet, though, so it must be true. Maybe that's why people like the New York Yankees. I don't know. Adepts going in and around, trying their very best, but so far the defense here by Solar has been solid. Blink on the back it is, but no Forge. Normally you add on a Forge as well at this stage in the game. We'll have to keep an eye out on exactly what the plan here of Nightmare is going to be. Interestingly enough, Solar not going +1 melee this time around. I'm pretty sure it's true. Lying on the internet is illegal. Nobody has ever lied before on the internet, okay? What are we gonna make, though? +1 missile. Okay, so when Solar goes for a delayed Evo chamber, it's always +1 missile, it seems. When he goes for a relatively early one, aka before the lair, it is always +1 melee. This time around, though, we did make a Roach Warren, but no roaches were produced, and instead, he's going into straight Hydras. No Baneling Nest, so maybe Roach Hydra? Roach Hydra Ling? Very old school unit composition, or maybe just Hydra Ling. Very Brood War. Shield battery coming up over third base. Nightmare is gonna try and win this best of 3 series with one final all-in. So we're doing an 8-gate all-in with Blink Stalkers. Now he's been spotted from a mile away. Solar is done making drones. He's gonna, just build up an insane amount of Hydra Ling now, and I think it's the perfect unit composition against this type of attack. Still, though, it's an awful lot of Protoss. Nightmare has really good micro, as he's already shown to us. But he needs to definitely get, like, a move on, right? Because this is not really a fight where, like, in the longevity of the game, it's gonna go better for Protoss. Usually, the more Hydras there are... I really like the Queens right now joining in as well. The Queens tanking here for the Ultralisks. The more Hydras there are, the worse these fights become. Hydras in general do seem to counter basically any gateway unit, other than High Templar. Yeah, they're not great against Zealots either, but they do reasonably well against everything. And their DPS is so ridiculously high, yeah, that the longer that these fights happen, the better it's going to be for the Zerg. Because the Hydra numbers are growing. Excellent defense here by Solar. Very confident. Hydra is now running low in HP. We have some good Stalker control, though. The problem is I don't think he has the numbers. Now we have as many Hydras as there are now we have as many Hydras as there are Hydras. Now we have as many Hydras as there are Stalkers. At this point, it's even more. And the Hydras have made their way to the warp-in location. Okay. Now, can Solar retaliate and straight-up counterattack? No. Apparently, he's decided that's not what we're going to do. Infestation Pit instead. Double Robo in the meantime. Nightmare really wants to go into Colossi here. I wonder, though, if Solar can just push. Free Oracle. I think going into, 4 hatchery here with, like, you know, lurkers and whatnot on the horizon is a plan. But I think you may as well test the waters. Hive is coming up. No lurker den yet. Hydras are kind of sick in these situations, right? Sometimes people call for Hydralisk buffs. But you gotta be so careful. Because even though Hydras are kind of a finicky unit and they can seem a little bit underpowered, they are just like one little tiny buff away from being horribly overtuned. And even though it's rarely the main unit in an attack, usually, even though we see Hydras all the time as like morphed into lurkers, or for example, together with Ling Bane, in this particular game, well, the Hydras were clearly the reason why Solar was able to push, and that was like the main brunt of his damage output. Normally it's the Zerglings, but yeah, he still certainly makes them work. So even though Nightmare ended up winning the first game of the series, that game kind of felt like a bit of a joke, since Solar skipped out on basically everything and went straight into Ultras. Like 2 Colossi without range showed up, and he's like, oh, I have nothing against it. Even though, yeah, that game wasn't so clean, I think across the board, this was an excellent series, and honestly a very impressive one as well from Solar, because this was not an easy set of games.